If anybody had told her that this would happen to her, she would never have believed it. She came to believe that truly, understanding girlfriend had no gain, and all along, she had been a fool. She still needed someone to wake her up from this nightmare and tell her that it was all a lie. Her childhood sweetheart couldn't have done this to her. Chika and Dubem grew up in the same neighborhood, so much so that they played with sand and climbed trees together as kids. It was an average neighborhood, and they attended the same primary and secondary school together. They were practically best friends. Nothing happened between them until one evening when they were returning from school in their last term in secondary school, and a young man stopped Chika on the way, professing his love to her. He confessed that he had been watching Chika for a while now and that he was in love with her. He listed out numerous qualities in Chika that he had seen in her and that also drew him to her. All the while, Dubem stood there, listening. The words of this young man opened Dubem's eyes to what had been right in front of him, but he never paid attention to. Chika was a treasure that needed to be kept. Not that that was the first man coming her way, but that was the first time that her qualities were being listed out, as though he had been studying Chika like a book for years. Dubem realized that if he didn't have Chika, he might have lost something more precious. Because they had been friends for so long, he simply took Chika's presence for granted. As Dubem continued to listen to this man preaching to Chika, he began to grow jealous. He wanted the man to disappear so that he could strike his chance with Chika. Chika, on the other hand, paid attention to what she was being told, making Dubem worried that she was falling for him. After he was done, he asked for Chika's phone number and she gave it to him. On their way home, Dubem asked Chika if she had already developed feelings for this man, but Chika simply laughed it off, thinking that Dubem was just being his usual self again. But everything changed after that moment. Chika noticed that Dubem became different. First of all, he started acting all formal around her. They used to always play with each other and even throw jabs at each other sometimes, but not anymore. Dubem would keep a straight face and act as though he was conversing with the principal's daughter. Then he started withdrawing. They were going to graduate from secondary school soon, and they were supposed to be making plans about their forthcoming graduation party. But Dubem just began to avoid Chika. At school, he started hanging out more with his male friends. At home, whenever Chika went to check up on him, she would be told that he wasn't around, and when she asked where he had gone to, no one would be able to give her a reasonable response. It was easy for Chika to suspect that Dubem was avoiding her. Yes, she was that smart. It hurt Chika deeply because Dubem was not telling her if she had done something wrong to him, and he wasn't even making himself available to be spoken to. He was the one true friend that Chika ever had, and while Dubem started hanging out with others, Chika was left on her own. After school, she walked home alone. In the neighborhood, there was no Dubem constantly hovering around her and teasing her. All efforts to get through to Dubem failed woefully, and at some point, Chika got tired of trying to talk to him. Instead of finding new friends, Chika stayed on her own, concentrating on her last days in secondary school. Then, one day, when Chika was returning from an errand, she ran into one of Dubem's friends, and she just couldn't help but ask if Dubem ever told them anything about her as to why he suddenly went cold with her. Dubem's friend told Chika that it was because Dubem realized that he had fallen in love with her, and worse, thought that he had lost her to her last toaster. So that was just Dubem's way of coping with the heartbreak. Chika was stunned. How come Dubem didn't say anything to her? They had been friends since childhood, and they practically knew each other's secrets. If anyone was free to express his feelings to her, Chika felt that it ought to be Dubem. It was also at that very moment that Chika realized that she might also have some lingering feelings for Dubem. The last couple of weeks without him had been torture for her, and they had been too close for years now not to feel anything for each other. Without hesitating, Chika went straight to Dubem's house. Again, his younger siblings had the same story to give her, but Chika was stubborn this time around, and she didn't take it. She forced her way into Dubem's house and found him right there in their living room, waiting for her to leave. Then Chika asked Dubem why he was avoiding her. Dubem tried to play around the question, but Chika told him exactly what she had heard. The moment Dubem looked away, Chika knew that it was true. Then, she prompted Dubem and forced him to give her a response. Dubem ended up saying that he was just timid. Chika told him that she never even picked the man's call after giving him her phone number, and if Dubem had asked, he would have known. In that moment, Chika told Dubem that she liked him, making Dubem relieved. At least, he didn't have to go through the stress of properly asking Chika out. And that was the beginning of long years of love between them. Like Drop a comment and subscribe to get more interesting and entertaining stories. Chika and Dubem's relationship blossomed as the years went by. They became the envy of all eyes. Since they were already very close friends before they started dating, it made their relationship all the more fun. Chika was in love. Dubem was the only man that she had given her heart to, and she believed that they were going to end up together. Chika was not just in love, but she was also very considerate. While other girls in the university charged their lovers for money for whatnot, Chika never asked Dubem for anything. She was trying to be very understanding. They were both in school and from average families. How was she supposed to ask him for money when Dubem was barely managing to get by himself? What was most important for Chika was that Dubem loved her, treated her with care, and stayed loyal to her. Then they finished university and faced the real life. Chika and Dubem both got jobs at different sectors, but it was just something average too, and they started from the lowest level. Regardless of what was happening around them in the country, Chika and Dubem's love grew stronger and better. They kept celebrating years of being in love. Anyway, Chika rented an apartment with her closest female friend, Ola. Ola catered to clients as a stylist, and so she relied on contracts rather than going to the office like Chika. But they were able to manage their friendship very well. However, people started to talk, and Chika's family was asking questions. It had been more than 4 years since she graduated from the university, and she wasn't getting any younger. How long would she wait for Dubem to marry her? Aside from the side talks and obvious questions from people and her family, Chika never planned on getting old before getting married. But Dubem wasn't saying anything. Chika, in the usual female fashion, tried to hint on Dubem coming for her hand in marriage, but tried as much as she could. Dubem just wasn't getting the hint. Then, one day, her parents did the unexpected. They invited the son of an old family friend to the house. At first, Chika thought that it was just a casual visit, until her family started to talk non-stop about Tobe. He was a medical doctor who owned his own pharmacy in town. He had a car and a comfortable apartment, and his parents were good people. You should consider going out with Tobe. He is also considering settling down. Her parents eventually told her. Chika was more disappointed that they would try to matchmake her than upset. They knew that she had been with Dubem all her life. How were they expecting her to just abandon Dubem and go with Tobe simply because he was well-to-do and ready to get married? Chika didn't think that it was fair. Her parents tried to make her see reasons why it was important for her to choose security over love. She might love Dubem, and he might also love her in return. But in starting a family, love is not the only thing that should be considered. Chika's parents believed that Chika needed someone who was reliable, could take care of her on the long run, and wanted to build a family, and not someone who had just love to offer, which was where Dubem fit in. But Chika stood her ground. There was no way in hell she was going to betray Dubem like that. The thought of ending up with someone else even made Chika deeply unhappy. No matter what her parents tried to make her believe, Chika refused to listen to them. Tobe, on his part, really wanted to get to know Chika. He liked her and would like them to go out and give it a trial. But Chika confidently told Tobe that she was in love with someone else, and that was the only person that she wanted to be with. Then Tobe offered to be her friend. We don't have to date. We can just hang out as friends and nothing more, Tobe offered. Chika wanted to turn it down because she knew that deep down, Tobe wanted more. If he didn't, he wouldn't have agreed to even come to her home to get introduced to her in the first place. But then again, what could be wrong in being friends? Ola, Chika's roommate, shared the same opinion with Chika's parents. You can just date the two of them, Chika. It's called not putting all of one's eggs in one basket. At the end of the day, you will get to choose who you really want to be with, Ola told Chika. What if Dubem doesn't end up marrying you? You would have lost a good man, she added, but Chika refused to think about it. Unlike what everyone else thought, she was confident in the love that she and Dubem shared. It was nothing like what anyone had known, and Chika believed that Dubem would marry her. The only reason it wasn't happening at the moment was because he didn't have a good job yet. If he had half of the money that Toby had, they would have been married. However, even as Chika defended Dubem and stayed loyal to their relationship, she was bothered deep down. And so, finally, she decided to have the conversation with Dubem without beating about the bush. The moment Chika brought up the conversation, Dubem broke down in tears. Much to Chika's surprise, Dubem told Chika that he had been going through a lot because as the first son, his old parents and siblings depended fully on him. How was he supposed to meet up when he was tied down with a load of responsibilities, especially as his job could hardly get him by? At the end of the conversation, Chika ended up feeling guilty for even talking to Dubem about marriage, when he was struggling to stay afloat. Like, subscribe, and drop a comment for more stories. Chika didn't bring it up again until a year later when she clocked 28. Still, Dubem wasn't saying anything. Dubem was only a few months older than Chika, and according to what a lot of people were saying, including her parents, a woman's prime and that of a man wasn't the same. Even at 35, Dubem could still be considered young for marriage, but at 35, Chika would have been declared an unfortunate spinster. And so she went back to worrying. Her parents had stopped pestering her now. Tobe had taken a step back after Chika refused to give him access to be her friend. And Ola had also stopped trying to convince her to date two men at the same time so that she would have options. But Chika was worried. Chika had never asked Dubem for a dime since they started dating, even before they entered the university. Now that they were working, she still never asked, and Dubem, not for once, offered to give her money or get her a gift. Not even a cheap one. Still, Chika didn't mind. In her head, she kept making excuses for Dubem even though she would have loved it if he gave her anything at all. Unable to keep waiting by the side, Chika spoke to Dubem about getting married again. But guess what? Dubem had the same excuses to give. Oh, he was saddled with the responsibilities of his family and his job wasn't enough to cater for his own little needs. How was he supposed to plan a proposal? How was he supposed to fund a wedding and get them a better apartment to live in? Those were the questions that Dubem asked Chika afterwards. But Chika came prepared. She told Dubem that she didn't care for romantic proposals. Those would cost money. And she wasn't very keen on big weddings. Actually, she would have loved it. But then again, people rarely got what they wanted out of life. At least, she had the love of Dubem. And for Chika, that was enough. Chika told Dubem that she didn't mind a small wedding. All she wanted was for him to indicate interest and actually marry her instead of dragging the relationship for years. Dubem told Chika that he really wanted to marry her, but with all the responsibilities over his head, there was no way he would be able to save for even her bride price. Then, he went ahead to tell Chika that if she would fund the wedding, he would be pleased. He didn't mind if she came up with the finances. Chika didn't exactly like the idea, but she accepted. She believed that after the wedding, with she and Dubem working together as a couple, things would get better. When Ola heard it, she was aghast. In what life does a woman pay for her own wedding? Ola told Chika that it was unheard of and that she shouldn't be doing it. No man asks the woman he loves to save up for their wedding, but Chika covered up for Dubem using his excuses. Dubem loved her, and she would not allow what everyone believed to be the norm to stop them from being together. And besides, no one would know that she sponsored the wedding if she didn't tell them, right? So, Chika started saving every dime she got from work towards the wedding. Because she was saving every money that came to her, Chika could not even provide her basic needs any longer. Sometimes, Ola assisted her with some money, but she couldn't depend on Ola all the time. Chika would sometimes plead with Dubem to give her a small amount of money to meet a need. But Dubem would complain about how broke he was, even to the point where Chika would have pity on him and take a loan from Ola to give to Dubem. It was a difficult period for Chika, but she was doing it for love. When it became obvious that she certainly could not cope without money, Chika decided to work for Ola. During the weekends when she wasn't going to work, she would go with Ola to style her clients, and in return, Ola would pay her. That way, she would be able to afford her basic needs. The first client that Ola had to style was a lady who she couldn't stop talking about. Ola told Chika that this client was living a luxurious life, all thanks to her new man. According to Ola, this new man of her clients took care of her every need. He got an apartment for her, gave her loads of money every month for her upkeep, and even paid for her vacations to wherever she wanted to go. This time around, he had just bought a ticket to Cape Town for her, and she wanted Ola to style her before leaving. All the while that Ola gushed about this client, Chika kept imagining what it would feel like to have a man who took care of her. Dubem had not spent a dime on her ever since they started dating. It would be lovely to even get a gift from him. But then again, Chika kept telling herself that once things got better for Dubem, she would have all of that and more. When they got to the client's apartment, Chika was in awe of how beautiful it was. She must be very lucky to have someone who takes care of her like this, Chika told Ola. Then, Ola began to style her and Chika assisted, but something happened that left Chika shocked to her bones. The client's phone rang, and immediately, Chika caught the picture of the caller, and she did because it was Dubem's picture. Not wanting to jump into conclusion even though she knew that she was staring at Dubem's picture. Well, it could be Dubem's doppelganger. Chika respectfully asked the client what his name was, and she confirmed that it was indeed Dubem. Like and comment for more interesting and entertaining stories. For 3 days, Chika was too dazed to even say anything. Ola kept asking what the problem was, but Chika couldn't speak. It was as though she had been struck by lightning. How was it possible that her boyfriend of more than 6 years, who couldn't even afford to take care of himself, was funding the entire lifestyle of another woman? Just how? After Chika came out of her shock, she decided to do some investigations because she didn't understand how it could be, and she didn't want to just confront Duben with it. She didn't want to be lied to or deceived. Chika didn't even want to blow things out of proportion, just in case by any slim chance she was making a mistake. When Chika was sure that Duben wouldn't see her, she went to his office and visited a colleague of his who knew her as Dubem's girlfriend. Chika asked him about Dubem, and innocently, he began to spill everything. Apparently, Dubem was promoted about a year ago to a higher level with more money and fat bonuses. He went on and on about how rich Dubem had become as a result of the promotion and how everyone envied him. Chika left Dubem's office more dumbfounded than she had ever been. For over a year, Dubem kept telling her that he didn't have any money, and she foolishly believed him because she trusted him completely. How could he have gotten promoted and not tell her about it? How could God have blessed him and he didn't think to marry her? Instead, he was using all the money he was getting to fund the lifestyle of a new woman he just met, doing what he had never done for her. Chika recalled all the times that she had to borrow money just to give to Dubem because he claimed to be extremely broke. She thought about all the birthdays and Valentine's Day that had passed without Dubem giving her anything as little as a gift. Chika was heartbroken beyond words. When she got to her apartment, she fell into Ola's arms and cried bitterly, explaining everything to her, and to think that for months, Chika had deprived herself of everything, all because she was saving for their wedding. Ola consoled her, and she rained insults on Dubem, but they would have to do something about him. Chika wanted to confront Dubem about it and ask why he would treat her in that manner. But Ola advised against it. You have to beat Dubem to his game, Chika. Otherwise, you will lose completely, Ola told Chika. Chika asked Ola what she should do, and Ola came up with a plan that didn't seem like it would work. But when they went to Ola's client and explained everything to her, she was willing to help. Chika thought that she would be upset, but instead, she felt sorry for Chika that she had to go through that with a man. The client told Chika that she wasn't in love with Dubem. She was only using him to fund her lifestyle, just as she was doing with other men. Chika was very pained that she gave Dubem years of love, commitment and loyalty, but he chose to be with someone who was only using him as soon as things got better for him. Anyway, she had to stick to the plan, no matter how heartbroken she was. The client, afterwards, started taking more money from Dubem, and because he was eager to please her, he kept going over and beyond just to please her. Sometimes, Chika went to a private corner and cried when this client would call Dubem in her presence and demand for something very expensive, and Dubem would promise to get it for her without hesitation. The same Dubem who had always said that he was broke whenever she asked for small amounts of money. The client was kind enough to give Chika most of the money that she collected from Dubem, and also the things Dubem bought for her. Just as planned, it was obvious that Dubem never valued Chika, and so instead of leaving the relationship empty-handed after years of being an understanding girlfriend to Dubem, she should leave with something as consolation. Meanwhile, Chika got in touch with Tobe. Thankfully, Tobe was still interested in getting to know Chika and building something with her, and so they began to hang out without Dubem's knowledge. In a few months, Chika got to realize that she had been wasting years with Dubem. Tobe was caring, loving, respectful, responsible, and without asking, he was more than generous with Chika, showering her with gifts, dates, and surprises. How did she allow herself to be blinded by the so-called love that she had for Dubem? Anyway, after some months, Chika decided that she had gotten enough from Dubem. It would never repay for the years she wasted with him, but she needed to move forward with Tobe, and so Chika came up with another plan. She told Dubem that she had a surprise for him, and then she invited him to a restaurant. Cluelessly, Dubem showed up, and there, Chika was waiting for him with Tobe by her side. The moment he saw her with another man, Dubem grew jealous again, but he also noticed that Chika was wearing something he remembered clearly getting for his new girlfriend recently. Dubem asked Chika what was going on, and Chika told Dubem everything that she found out about him. Dubem, shocked that he had been caught, began to plead with Chika for a second chance, promising to marry her right away. But Chika shook her head at him. She realized that Dubem only wanted her around whenever he saw her with someone else, not that he valued her enough to treat her right. Chika was obviously done with Dubem and ready to move on to the next chapter of her life with Tobe, the right man for her. She merely wanted to teach Dubem a lesson. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel to get more interesting and entertaining stories.